Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. It's that time of year. MLB playoffs is about to kick off. That end of the season, pretty incredible. All the teams making the playoffs. We didn't have anything crazy on Sunday. The only thing we really had to deal with was who was going to win the AL West, who was going to get that first round bye. We saw Houston get in there. This video, I'm going to, go over the playoffs, kind of predict who's going to win. I know I've done this a couple times over the past months. Now it's final. Clearly, none of my predictions were 100% accurate, but I will say I was bang on in the American League and the National League, who was going to make it back in August. So, gotta at least give me a little bit of props there in August. I got all the teams right. Seedings, not so much. A little bit off on that, but really, I called it. I think that's the best I've ever done when it came to the August predictions. So, we're going to predict the postseason. Guys, I'm wearing my Jays stuff. I'm super pumped. The Jays made it into the playoffs. They're my team, of course. I tried to be as unbiased as possible when doing these predictions, but I know I'm going to get some hate when they see the American League because a little preview here. I like the Jays. So we're going to jump into it. American League first. It's tradition. I'm doing a little different style. I'm not doing the board as you see behind us. We're going to just do it here quick because, guys, I only have one day. And normally I don't really do videos on Mondays, but we're doing it this week. Kick things off here in the American League. Got the Astros. We got the Baltimore Orioles, both getting that first round bye. You see there, number 1 and number 2 seed. The 3, 6 play each other. Twins, Jays, 4, 5, Rays, Texas. Of course, the home team gets all 3 games in this 3-game set. So the Twins and Rays both going to be at home for the whole series. And I think that will be the difference maker in a couple of these. Maybe not on this side. I don't see it that way. So we're going to go into the Twins, Jays first. The winner of this series is going to go on to play Houston in Houston, best of 5. It's not all in Houston, but we'll get that. This first game series, I talked about it earlier in August or in September. I thought the team that got the 6th seed would have an advantage over the 4-5 because they would play the Twins. However, the Twins have gotten a lot better since that August. The starting pitching is a little more consistent. They got the 2 top guns there that deliver. We got Sonny Gray, we got Maeda, we got the guys there. It's the lineup that concerns me a little bit, especially when they're playing a team like the Blue Jays. Should the Blue Jays lineup play as good as it's capable of, they should win this series with pretty much ease, I think. I think they should win this one in 2. So I'm just going to do this. I'm moving the Jays on to play Houston. That's my prediction. I do think the Jays are going to win, and I do think it's going to happen in 2 games. The 4-5, this is an interesting series. Rays are actually pretty big favorites with Texas being plus 165, which to me is a little bit of a shock. I don't think the Rays deserve that kind of credit. I do believe that they have the advantage when it comes to pitching, but I do think the Texas bats, at least the top of the order, and Corey Seager has just been amazing over the past month. I do think a lot of advantage will be there. Texas looked a little iffy in that last series with Seattle. They lost the division in that series. They really had it. They just had to go win 2 games, and they didn't. So a little bit of concern there. I do believe, though, that with the Rays, they're going to have in a 3-game set, the things I worry about aren't going to be there. I do think they win in 3 games. It's going to take the 3 games, and they will go on to play at Baltimore. After that, we got a massive series here with the Baltimore Orioles taking on the Tampa Bay Rays. These guys have played a ton of baseball. It's been back and forth, super close games all season long. The one thing that's going to hurt the Rays is games 1 and 2. They're not going to have the aces that they're going to have to blow in that first series. I assume we might see Glasnow come in the 3rd game. I would expect. I don't like the depth of the Rays, and I think after having played that series with Texas, they might have to blow a lot of their bullpen too. If they're unlucky and have to go 3, should they go 2, then it might be a different story. But in this situation, based on the things that have happened, I don't know if the Rays will have what it takes. I do think these guys will play 5 games no matter what happens. I do expect the Orioles are going to make it to the ALCS. And then we're going to move on to the Toronto Blue Jays against the Houston Astros. Jays have had the Astros numbers this season. Let's not forget that I think on paper, overall, the Jays are a better team than the Astros. I think being in the American League East has really dampened them. Of course, there are some concerns. We saw them get swept by Texas in there at the end of the season. But overall, when it mattered in these last 4 games of the season, they won more than they lost against division rivals. So I do like the Jays. I really like the Jays. I think they're a team that is built for the postseason. They have a lineup full of depth. Definitely when you have someone like Matt Chapman and Varsho batting 8-9 consistently on this roster. Do like their 5-man rotation in a 5-game series. They might have to blow a couple of their strong guys like Gosman in that first game, but having Bassett coming in, if they win the first 2 in Minnesota, they're going to have Bassett number 3 coming in to lead off against the Astros. It's not a big concern. Kikuchi has had a monster year. They've had 5 strong rotations, so having playing that first series and then coming into a game against Astros, I do like their chances. I do have their Jays, and I think they're going to win this one in 4. So, I think that is going to be a big upset, maybe to most people. But honestly, right now, I think the Jays are in a good spot. They've played some meaningful baseball, really, for the past month. All the games have mattered, super intense. They're high intensity in this lineup, and that's going to lead into this amazing 7-game series. The Orioles have had the Jays number all season long, but I do not believe the Jays are going to fall back to that same kind of situation. This might be a little bit of bias, but we're talking about a team in the Jays that have been in the playoff. A lot of these guys have been in the playoffs before. We have the opposite side, the Orioles. They're a young team. They haven't been to this stage of it before. Of course, the Jays players have not been this deep in the playoffs, but they've played meaningful games before. We got Bichette, who's might be one of his last chances to run deep here with Vladdy. We got this team that might not be able to hold it together coming into next season. And we have a manager that is going to probably be managing for his life all playoff series long. I actually, and I know this is going to be way out there, I actually see the Blue Jays coming out of the American League, guys. I swear, if you've watched this channel before, I try very hard not to be biased. And I just think the Jays are in such a good spot. And it might be because I'm a fan. But also looking at these other teams, and I see weaknesses across the board. Like, you got Texas, who has weakness at starting pitching. They lost some big key guys with DeGrom and Scherzer late in the season. You got Houston, who has been somewhat inconsistent. They got swept by the Royals down the stretch. They got strong playoff experience. There is a ton of concern there, and I think that's going to be a big concern. And we got the Orioles, who have played amazing out of their pants all season long to get to where they are now. But can they keep it up? I'm not sure. I would not even be surprised for them to get knocked off by the Rays in that second round. But right now, if you had a gun to my head, I would pick the Jays to come out of the American League, believe it or not. I know, crazy. So let's move on. We're going to go into the National League, guys, to see who I believe the Jays are going to be coming and playing against. So we got same kind of situation. Milwaukee and Philly both going to be hosting 3-game series, getting the 3-4 seed. We got Atlanta, Dodgers. They've been 1-2 for a long time, not having to play meaningful baseball for a long time. We'll get to them in a sec. Milwaukee, Arizona. This matchup, I think, really hurts Milwaukee because for me, the biggest advantage that Milwaukee had was their pitching. And when it comes to a 3-game series, the last team that they wanted to match up against, I think, in a pitching kind of matchup would have been Arizona because they got Zach Gallen, they got Merrill Kelly. Those 2 guys can have 2 amazing outings, and then Milwaukee's advantage is pretty much shot in the foot. However, I do think the bats do favor Milwaukee a little bit here, and I do have them winning this one. I think it's going to go 3. I think they're going to split 1-1 off the bat. I wouldn't be surprised if Milwaukee takes that first game when Zach Gallen comes in. But, of course, that could go 2-0 Milwaukee. But right now, I do think it's going to go 3. I think Milwaukee's going to come out of there. And we're going to see a match that we've seen many times over the past few years in the Brewers and Dodgers. We'll talk about that in a second. Going on to 4 or 5, we got these guys have matched up all season long. Of course, division rivals, Phillies, Marlins, could go any which way, honestly. I think the Phillies, everyone assumes they're going to walk away with this one. But the Marlins have been able to compete very well with the Phillies, especially during the summer when the Phillies were not at their prime time. But with the Phillies, they've been here. They've done it. They've been in this wild card situation. They've been in this battle of 3-game series last year. And they got out and they made it their way to the World Series. I think they're going to lean into that. These guys have a ton of experience, and you expect them to be able to use that to their advantage. So 3 games for Milwaukee. I'm going to think the Phillies are going to get out. Maybe Miami will steal one, but if I had to bet, I would say Phillies in 2. That would bring us to an amazing division championship series here. Like, all these teams match up. I could see any one of these 4 teams coming out of the National League. I would have to say that the National League, when you get down to the 4, is a little bit stronger than the American League, but that could hurt them when it comes to who's going to make it through. We're going to look at Atlanta here. Atlanta, of course, has been monster all season long. It's hard to say anything hard against them. They're going to be in a 5-game set. These guys are going to go the distance. I would expect this to go 5 games, believe it or not. I think it's going to be Atlanta in the driver's seat the majority of the way, but Phillies are going to squeeze some out. But I would expect, if I had to bet, I'm going to make Atlanta move on to the championship in the National League. They've just been so strong. It's really hard to go against them. Their bats have been lights out. Their pitching at times has given up a lot of runs, but they've made the addressing the one issue of adding a couple bullpens maybe at the trade deadline. Expect them to get there into the championship. That brings us to this interesting series between the Brewers and the Dodgers. For the most part, the Dodgers have always squeezed past the Brewers, and it really concerns me that the Brewers are going to have to use 2 of their big guns in that series with Arizona. Expect that 1 extra day off. We're probably going to see Corbin Burnes. If he's going game 1 in Arizona, he'll probably be out for game 2 against the Dodgers. I do love the pitching coming out of Milwaukee. They're the one team that can maybe quiet down the Dodgers a little bit. And I think that's the one concern that Dodgers can have coming into the postseason is, while they have a very strong top-of-the-lineup offensive team, if the pitching can shut them down, I do worry that the Dodgers are going to get through. I do think that the Brewers are going to come out of this one, and this is going to be contrary to popular belief. I think the Brewers are going to sneak out, and they're going to make it to the National League Championship here. They're going to have to pull out all the stops. That game's going to go, I'm going to say 4. Believe it or not, I'm picking Brewers in 4. Brewers have played some great baseball. Their offense is coming hot. They're starting to get strong. They made the right changes at the trade deadline. They're a team that is well-rounded enough to make a deep run here. But then they're going to run into Atlanta. They're going to play a 7-game set. Brewers in 7 games is going to be, it's tough for them to beat Atlanta over 7 games. So I really think we're going to see a repeat, believe it or not, a repeat of the World Series back in the 90s where the Blue Jays faced off against the Atlanta Braves. That is my prediction, guys, of what is going to happen in this MLB playoff season. This is probably a bracket that you're not going to see very far. I've done a lot of thinking about this. I know I'm going to get a lot of hate. Atlanta, of course, the big favorite. Everyone's going to take that. But I see the path in front of me. This is the path I see. And on the other side, probably a little bit contrarian to what most people are thinking. We're just going to take a quick back. Blue Jays. They're going to make it. And guys, there you have it. That is what I see happening in the MLB playoffs here in 2023. As we know, I've done this 4 years in a row. By the time we're 2 days in, one team is swept that I didn't pick, and my whole bracket's out the window. So let me know in the comments below, what do you guys have for your bracket? What do you guys think is going to happen? Am I just crazy? I probably am for thinking my team's going to go this far deep. But guys, if there's ever been an opportunity for the Jays to make a run, and I think this is it. Same goes on the other side. If there's ever an opportunity for the Brewers to really take a run in it, any team, like it's the playoffs, guys. Any team can get hot. You just got to be hot for a couple series in a row, and you're going to be World Series champions. Let me know what you guys think. Smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel. We're going to try to do some review of all the games. I'm going to see if I can do it. I'm going to try and do, at least for the first little bit, a video a day, probably in the morning, just reviewing the games from the night before going over. So if you're into that kind of thing, subscribe to the channel. We're going to be doing it. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you for that next one. Peace out.